It's wonderful to be here on Hornby, and thanks so much for inviting us and allowing us to help sort out this herring issue that you have in your front doorstep.
Hold the mic closer, please.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit more. This is an ice cream mic. You have to eat it.
How's that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's been so much incredible information on all things herring, so it's a pretty hard app to follow. Most of mine in Pacific Wilds experience with herring really comes from the central coast of BC and Heiltsuk and Kitasoo, Hay First Nation territory. I've lived up there for about 30 years, and I remember when the first spring herring season happened, and you'd see all the Heiltsuk people going out and collecting seaweed and hemlock boughs and going off into their quiet coves to put all the branches and seaweed into the ocean, and seeing the boats coming back full of eggs a bunch of days later. It just was one of the most formative moments for me on the coast to really see the incredible importance of herring. So I've spent a lot of time. Spent a lot of time underwater during herring season. Doing films like the IMAX film and books and whatnot. And I've just absolutely fallen in love with this incredible big little fish. They're just one of the wildest species on the coast that do the most remarkable things. They're so important to the Heiltsuk Nation that their actual calendar year is designed around this spawning event. That this is the beginning of the year when herring come in from offshore to spawn in their territory. And as you've heard earlier today, the most incredible archaeological work that I think explored something like 171 midden sites from Washington to Alaska that showed this consistent, persistent, abundant presence of herring on this coast over many, many thousands of years. And so, we know, of course, historically there's been these ups and downs with salmon, but not so much with herring. So, herring probably have played a more profound role in building coastal cultures. This is just north of Bella Bella, and the other thing that I was introduced to herring. This is actually a still shot from the IMAX film. Where Deirdre spent, I think, 6 days trying to film them in this aquarium, waiting for them to hatch, and I ended up on the cutting room floor. But if you ever get a chance when you're down on the beach at low tide, after a week or so after the spawn, bring a magnifying glass and you can have a look at the eggs that are out there, and see all the little eyes spinning around, and it's absolutely beautiful. Sure. As some of you know, we spend a lot of time working on wildlife issues, especially around grizzly bears and coastal wolves. And wolves there's one pack of wolves near Bella Bella that I've gotten to know quite well, and realized how important herring eggs actually are for them. So at this time of year, they're coming down to the shoreline, waiting in anticipation for the herring spawn, and like clockwork, they'll show up on the same days and inlets and start feasting on eggs, and they'll do this for up to a month if the eggs are there. So it's a considerable food supply for, of course, not just the marine ecosystem, but lots of terrestrial critters. And I was working on a book a few years ago, and I really wanted this picture of herring underwater and the eggs and the wolves up above on the beach. Eating them, trying to jam as many different elements into one picture. And so I was waiting for these wolves to come out and start eating on eggs, and they were coming around the corner, and so I jumped in the water, just had my dry suit on, and swam over. Swam over to them, and then when I got over there, they all stopped, and they just immediately came running straight at me, and I just realized, part of our work has been really documenting the diet of wolves, and I know that these wolves actually these wolves specialize in eating harbor seals. I got this black mountain hood on, I'm sitting in the water, and I'm like, this is so close to a Darwin Award. I really should know better. I just kind of chewed away on my snorkel for a few minutes and then left, realizing I was just a rubber seal. But it's just been such a really a privilege to be able to document this amazing natural history event, to be supported through our work at Pacific Wild to just spend as many days as we possibly can. I think I'm now on to 30 herring spawning seasons, and every year I learn more and more and more, and especially about how many more different species time and owe their existence to this amazing fish. And this is about a group of about 8,000 surf scoters. And just again, how do these thousands and thousands of surf scoters communicate to know that we get all the way up on the right day, up on the central coast of BC in these really remote places, but somehow they communicate and they get there. I thought this would be such a great sequence for the IMAX film, and we just worked away for three herring seasons trying to get this. But the reason it's so hard is because you got 7,000 to 10,000 surf scoters that are gorging on all these herring eggs, and basically so the ocean is, well, it's full of sperm and shit. It's not the best environment to try to make a film in. So it's just something wrong about grown adults swimming in this stuff. It did manage to get a season there somewhere. Sure. Yeah, these. I don't know. I haven't seen the kind of concentrations that we get on the central coast around here. But if you get a chance to spend time observing these birds, you will just won't regret it at all. They are so much fun.
Here too. They happen here too.
Yeah, great. Sure, yeah. Oh, this might be a video.
Over 1 million surf scoters time their migration north to arrive as the herring lay their eggs. But they have to dive to reach them. Somehow, these birds knew the right moment to arrive to take advantage of the herring spawn. For Saul and his family, timing is also critical.
Yeah, there's also something about being underwater surrounded by birds. It's one of the closest times I think I've come to death was I almost drowned myself laughing so hard because they're all like, it's like, what are these birds doing in the water? I've learned so much, of course, from Health Lake First Nation in particular, around this amazing event, and this is a species that is so intertwined with this culture. It's really, they are inseparable, and it's been such a sad story relationship between the Canadian government and the First Nations on this coast as it relates to herring. In 1988, the two brothers from the Gladstone family were charged for selling herring eggs. So the Heltzig actually, through a precedent-setting case, eventually won in court the inherent right to sell herring eggs commercially. But it's just been an ongoing battle ever since. One of the biggest fisheries that happened on the coast would happen in Heltzig territory. So every year it was such a bittersweet springtime because it should be a celebration of renewal and of herring and rebirth, but it was just always mired in conflict, where the Heiltsuk would be going out to protest the industrial seine and gillnet fleet, and it was just emotionally really challenging to witness, because the stocks, of course, were just collapsing. They were disappearing from all of their areas. As you see here, they're harvesting hemlock bells and herring eggs. And it's just such an amazing thing, because I mentioned this briefly this morning, where everyone in the village, almost everyone in the village participates in this fishery, but everyone knows to go so quietly in the herring grounds. And so, if somebody runs an engine too loud, drops a wrench in a boat, talks too loud, they'll get in real trouble, because they're so concerned about, the noise disturbing and spooking the herring. So it's just a beautiful, dignified fishery where, you see everyone whispering out on the grounds. No one's going fast in their boats. They're waiting for the herring to return, waiting for this incredible harvest to happen. And then you see this industrial fishery, like, what we were witnessing yesterday, the screaming hydraulic winches, the smashing of the boats to keep the sea lions away. I mean, it's one of the most insulting things that we're doing in these waters, and historically on the Central Coast as well, to these fish. And I've spent countless days underwater trying to film herring, and I know that if I even exhale bubbles, you just spook 1,000 tons of fish just like that. If you accidentally bang your scuba tank on a rock, they just disappear. So one of the things that really should be looked at is the extreme acoustic disturbance that is occurring in this area, and the impact it's having on herring. The good news is that in 2015, after decades and decades of fighting DFO, doing incredible research, fighting them in courts on the herring grounds, the frustration in the community built so high that a group of young people went across the water and occupied the DFO office in Bella Bella. And they basically evicted DFO from their territory, and they wouldn't leave until someone from Ottawa came out and had a serious look at this herring fishery issue. And they fortunately finally convinced DFO to send the seine and gillnet fleets home, and they haven't been back since. So it's a great news story. And, it's just incredible leadership from this community in regards to protecting herring. The bad news, though, is that the stocks aren't recovering, and this is something that we know in many other parts of the world where this research has been done, that once these populations reach these critical thresholds, for some reason they don't seem to be coming back. And some people believe it's maybe it's because these are such a culturally driven species that they're beginning to accept this low threshold as the normal. It's like they're forgetting to be the super abundant species on this coast. There's lots of speculation about it, but and it's probably unknown. But what we do know is that once they reach a low number, they don't necessarily come back, and that's one of the reasons why having a much stronger precautionary approach to the Salish Sea herring population is a good idea. Sure. Just around the corner. The fish, you look at these old, I was actually trying to find one of them, but go online and look at these old black and white pictures from Steveston, the big herring offloads, and you look at these pictures and you're like, wow, that was a good catch of pink salmon. I mean, that's how big these herring actually look. They're a foot long and big and fat. And you look at all the fish that are being caught out here yesterday and today, and they're all like 6 inches long. They're juveniles. They're super, super young, and we've systematically taken out those elder herrings that taught the little guys how to be herring, and it's one of the reasons why the future is pretty bleak for these fish unless we can get those old, mature adult herring back. Sure. And this is all too familiar sight for you folks around here. Yeah. Oh, I guess it's video, but you can keep going. Grant told me I only get 5 minutes. This is actually from yesterday. The health sick would, they would never ever allow, any of this to happen. And it's nothing short of a miracle that the herring come back with this sort of noise and disturbance and everything. Sure, yeah. So this is from the previous federal fisheries minister, and the new one's no different. But I just find this op-ed in response to the kind of collective campaign that's been happening here last year. It's just the most arrogant statement in the world to think that taking 20% of a biomass, of a collapsed biomass, to help protect whales that we know are starving, that somehow they're leaving enough. And if you think about the averages that were caught in this fishery here locally, the amount of fish that was caught in the 1950s and 60s is almost equivalent to the entire predicted biomass of this area right now. So it's the idea that we're still running managing herring at historic levels, which GFO continues to tell us it's just ludicrous. Sure. Well, I think that's it. Did I did my 5 minutes? Do you want to have any questions? No, no? Yeah.